welcome back to the Black Performance Project. This is a really exciting episode because it's our last episode of season 1 of this really, I think, has been a really fun platform to talk about Black performance. And so today we have a full team. Our whole team is back. We've got, of course, Harvey Williams.
Hello.
Harvey. And we have Baron Kelly.
Hello.
And of course, we have our 2 rotating guests, Melonnie Walker.
Hey, everyone.
And of course, Lewis Morrow, who is.
What's up, yeah?
Great. So we're excited that you're with us. This is the last episode, and we are talking about the new Amazon Prime show, Them, which many of you know is executive produced by Lena Waithe and is created by Little Marvin. And we will talk a little bit more about that. We're going to show a brief clip from the trailer for you to kind of take a look at the aesthetic, and then we're going to come right on back and talk about the show.
Pretty nice, huh?
Bigger than it looked in the pictures.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing.
You couldn't imagine a nicer place to live.
I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing.
This home is ours.
This is how it begins, with one family. They came from someplace worse. We'll have to make this place worse.
What's worse than worse?
Heard them folks in Compton straight up evil, man.
Fuck this.
There's something bad in this house. I don't like it.
We got our eyes on you.
We do this till it gets done.
Think of home.
We're back. What do you think? Them. I know a lot of us were kind of thinking, did we want to talk about this? Did we not want to talk about this? So first impressions, anyone take the mic?
I'll start, Nicole. I will be the one to admit that I had really high hopes for this show, mainly because I am a horror nerd. I love all things horror. I was that kid in middle school reading my mother's Stephen King books when I wasn't supposed to be.
Right.
So I was really looking forward to seeing how this story could be situated in the horror genre. And it really is the perfect genre for these kinds of atrocities and the most vilest monsters in American history. This is really the perfect genre for it. But I was disappointed. I didn't love it like I thought I would.
Oh, well, I'm going to reserve mine to the end. Anyone else?
Now that I've had a chance to, because I watched it a couple of weeks ago, I just sat through all of it. I've had a chance to digest it. And like Mel just said, she put it perfectly. The genre for it is perfect. The upsetting thing about it is that it's factual. And it's, to me, it's more than horror, it's the trauma. This is actual trauma that Black people experience And I think it touched on every aspect. Children, no matter how young, older adults, mothers, fathers. It just kind of exemplified how totally traumatic being Black in America was and is to some extent.
Great points. Great points.
I can, because when we had an informal conversation about this and I was listening to Lewis, I can actually say this whole, I only watched about 4 or 5 episodes. I think I got to episode 5. And it was trauma fantasized to me. And, you know, because when I watch, if I watch horror, and I'm an old, I love those old Universal horror movies with the expressionism and all that stuff, what they did with the lighting and the sets and all this. And there were really only 2 moments in the 5 episodes that I saw that really pulled me in, or 2 people that pulled me in to particular moments in it. Other than that, I couldn't get through it. Yes, it's, you know, historical underpinnings and all this sort of stuff, but it was trauma fantasized to me. And I'm just going to leave it there until we get into a conversation.
Oh, that's great. That's great for us to kind of hold that in mind. Trauma fantasized. Lewis, you're not least, but you are almost last.
I probably am least with regards to what I have to offer because I didn't watch it all. I watched about half, a little over half. I hated it. You know, I'll be honest. Things like this, and I'll try to just, you know, we hear that keyword or that phrase now, it's real popular, trauma porn, but it's not porn to me. It's almost like, and I hate to use this, but it's like, it's more along the lines of, it's like rape in the extent, it's very brutal. It's very, I mean, porn at least can be consensual to some extent, but this is, listen, if you want to teach us about history, teach us about history, do a documentary, but to wrap this up under a blanket of entertainment or edutainment or whatever it is horrific to me. I just don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate it. I think it's garbage. And what really just, you know, bothers me, you know, about that is when people say, well, you know, we need to know these things. Well, I mean, listen, I know how, you know, what logistically what rape may be. I don't want to see it. And I don't want to see it acted out. This is, yeah, it's traumatic, but more than that, it's just like how much, and it's the same old argument. We always bring it up, right? Well, you know, we're tired of seeing slave movies. Oh, we're tired of seeing this. We're tired of seeing that. Will Smith is coming out with a movie and everything like that. My thing is, if you're going to do it new. To just put it under the thing, well, but this isn't drama. This is a horror flick because it's scary. Man, when I think of horror, I think of Jason. I think of Freddy. I think of things that I can finish watching and saying, you know what, that wasn't real. I can go to sleep knowing that I'm going to be okay. This shit is real. This happened. And they're just, you know, I've never in my life hated anything artistically more. I hated it.
No, we just still kind of need to know how you feel. We're still.
I hated it.
Yeah, get off the fence, Louis. Get off the fence.
Yeah, come on. If you're gonna talk. Oh, well, I'll say this. I think you everybody's got fantastic points here. I think the idea like fantasized trauma of this, you know, this idea of what you're talking about, a pornographic trauma, and that is this quote unquote sexy buzzword to talk about, to me, unreconciled violence and premature death. I mean, Black people did die. They didn't fake die, right? Black people were lynched. They weren't fake lynched as in a fantastical idea of it. They were sexually assaulted over and over and over as an economy. So I think the idea of putting this under sci-fi, though, you know, what Melonnie and Harvey are saying, you know, very much is the quote genre for it, But yeah, for entertainment, sure, but not for violence that actually unreconciled violence that happened to Black people that we still have like epigenetic connection to, you know? And I think it's a way for Hollywood to get off the hook, to say that what happened to us wasn't real. It is all in our imagination. And they take a little factual and then they stretch out a little bit more. So we as a people can't reconcile, well, what was real and what wasn't real? And now you're teaching a new generation who may not have this history. You're teaching them a fictional history of real events that happened. And now what do they believe? They're mixing like the Hollywood version with, you know, the factual version. And that's the part to me that's really scary.
You know, the feeling I got from watching parts of it put me in mind of a play that I saw that was directed by, can't remember the director's name, but it was by Adrienne Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nightmare scenario, her personal nightmare. And
Mm-hmm.
from a certain standpoint, this put me in mind of it. Some of the things that were portrayed and that were bizarre, yet they were based on something that you could connect the dots to. And other parts were just totally gone. You know, it was almost just like, oh, well, taking drugs, just experience that because you can't explain it. And so, because I heard someone mention the fact that they were being critiquing the show, and they were alluding to the fact that the writer may have been a little bit disturbed. And you know, when you look at the content, and you look at the content of a lot of things, the violence and things that are in different programs, and you can't just, I don't think, throw it off on the writer. But when you put something like this together, like you're saying, there are different aspects that have to be put together. So a lot of different people contribute to what may have been a one-step process. Now it's a 2-3-step process, which changed the first step. And so I wonder where the true, you know, the true balance to this show was, because there's no telling where it ended up.
I wonder what and Nicole, maybe she's even thought about this, of what the pitch for this show was, because white people funded this show. And it's white folks' money that goes into this. It's the same way that I feel about, you know, these Black British actors coming over, and Nicole and I have talked about this. It's not the actor's fault, it's the producer's fault. And what the hell did they think in their minds, and I couldn't even begin to guess what was in their minds, of how this was going to attract particular audiences. And even the Royal Shakespeare Company in London has realized over the past 5-10 years now that they're in competition with the movies. So they got to get their asses in the seats because of spectacle and a whole bunch of other things. Excuse me, my screen just switched. And this generation that's coming up, I totally agree, of what the hell are they going to know is the truth and what is just fantasy. What did you say? Exploitation, Harvey? Just spot on, I thought. You know,
well, just for the viewers to come in, and that, you know, if they're coming into our conversation on this, is that, you know, this takes place in the 1950s. It's a Black family, upperly mobile Black engineer and his wife and 2 children. They're moving to Compton, and the big shock in this, when we look at all the, you know, kind of critiques around it, it's like, who knew Compton was white? But I mean, Compton used to be a, you know, a post-war enclave, and many white families lived there. There was a white flight epidemic that happened in the 1950s, but the areas were part of the early redlining practices, where, you know, banks would create these kind of inflated prices to resell homes, and
all over,
you know, and this is also the time of racially restrictive covenants, where covenants were put into the deeds of homes that prohibited the owner to resell to Black families, and also to Jewish families were also in racially restrictive covenants. Also, Asian families were often just non-white blood, is kind of the way that many of them were framed. And so then the way that the show plays out is, we're watching the ways that this family is terrorized, as if in a horror movie, in order to get them to leave, right? But what I think the problem that we're talking about between fact and fiction is that this actually happened. Like Lewis said, at what point do you try to turn this? I have a great idea. Let's take an American trauma like smallpox blankets and write a story about it and make it like a horror movie. I mean, to me, there's
over and over again, over and over again, over and over and over and over again, over and over again. And let's nominate it for let's make that the only thing that can get nominated for awards. Let's make that the only thing that we can, the only story we have to tell about America is this smallpox pandemic over and over again.
Yeah, this is, I think that Little Marvin, so Baron, you were talking about the pitch. I understand Little Marvin to be a protege of Lena Waithe. I understand this was an idea that he had in development for a long time. There's a lot of references that are obviously factual. He talks about redlining. He shows the ways that, crosses were burned and things were burned into the grass of homes. He shows the ways that kids were breaking, integration boundaries in schools. So a lot of those are factual things. How the pitch went, I did some research. I couldn't get the breakdown of the writer's room to find out exactly how many Black writers are on the show. But I think when you talk about like what was the pitch and why and who's funding it, writers get paid a lot of money to write on an episodic television show, and directors get paid a lot to direct. And so there's capital attached to you getting a show greenlit. And someone says, hey, Baron, Melanie, Lewis, Harvey, you've got your own show on Amazon Prime. We love this part. We love this part. What about some blackface? What about us put like several white families? I don't know what the formula is, but this
yeah. What? Excuse me. What was the movie? Because it's kind of to me, it's kind of a foreshadowing or a blueprint for a lot of these things when you talk about how the pitch is made with the sunken place. What was that movie?
Oh, that's Get Out. That's Jordan Peele. Yeah.
And to me, that was one of the first ones that took this, again, horror theme, but surrounded it around racial issues and how Black people were looked at and treated. And I can't help but think I loved one scene in Them. I have to say that, and this is the only one, and I only loved it for a brief amount of time because that's how long the love lasted.
In Them, Harvey?
Yeah, you said it, In Them, yep.
Yeah. When she got on the bus and went to the Black community.
Oh, yeah.
For a second, it was like coming out from underwater. You could take a breath. Yeah. She's around people. They were talking like they knew her, and you felt familiar with these people. But that didn't last long either before it turned into whatever they wanted it to represent. But for just a second, to me, that one piece of realness just helped to even highlight just how cruel the rest of the picture was. So,
Nicole, you used a word, you said unreconciled, and that really kind of connected to how I was feeling about the show overall. And even in this genre, I think those of us who love these kind of movies, we are looking for some kind of escapism. And there was just no redemptive qualities about it at all. Like, where was the escapism? Nothing was ever vindicated. It was unreconciled in that way for me. Like, there was nothing at the end. I hated the way that it ended. And even the movies and the shows that came before this, some I really didn't like, some I really did like Get Out or Antebellum, or even this is coming on the heels of Lovecraft Country, which I actually did enjoy, because there was something redemptive You know, and I just didn't feel that way at all. So where was the escapism? These were traumas and terrors, and this fascination with other people's suffering felt like it was for nothing.
I agree with Lewis. I mean, this formula, this isn't the first time, right? I mean, and then the problem I have, and you know, this is like, I'm happy for all my brothers and sisters who are getting their 4-show deals and doing what they have, but with what too much is given, much is required. And I think that who is there to recuperate the loss that these, you know, emerging actors who have been working and waiting for this moment to accept jobs like this, that now have to go to therapy, I'm sure, for years.
Like the Juilliard thing. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, they're unnecessary traumatic moments. The program in general to me is unnecessary. And secondary, there is no reverence for the dead. There's no reverence for the generations of people who are suffered as a result of, whether it be 1950s breaking blocks and traumatizing Black communities then, or whether it be, you know, before Reconstruction, emancipation with runaway enslaved people. Nobody has paid us for that in emotional debt or in capital. So I'm always confused about why we want to make money on this now. To me, certain things are sacred. And I think this is hallowed ground. At least for me it is. I don't really want to make a profit off of the trauma and pain of my people in this way.
There was a moment, I can't remember which episode, where there's 2 or 3 where the male lead, and I can't remember his name, there's a company party, and he's supposed to, the CEO gets up on stage and does his little spiel, and he's getting ready to leave, and then I guess the underling or whatever says, see you later, and then he says, oh, what's going on? Oh, he's giving a talk, and blah, blah, and he comes back to meet the boss, the CEO. God, that actor was terrific. And the way he looked at him and the way he reared up his body, like, what wonder cabinet did you come out of? I mean, I was looking at that and I was like, yes, now it's going to start to get into some deep stuff here. And he only had that 1 or 2 scenes in that, you know, or whatever.
Talking about Ashley Thomas, the one who played the actor who played the boss.
Yeah, the CEO, he steps down and he's talking to other people, and he, you know, the brother comes around and says, let me introduce myself. And he didn't know who he was, and then all that sort of stuff. And that was a great moment. I would take that and show that to acting students because of what that actor did in those moments. And then the little girl of the family, the little tiny one, she's just a wide-eyed joy. I don't know who she is, but you know, I was just like really taken with her.
Yeah, the cast is pretty stellar. I mean, I think for actors to have to go through all of this type of physical trauma while on set, I mean, I hand it to them. I mean, it's some really nice work, you know, by the actors in this. I mean, did anyone have a chance to even engage the acting, being traumatized by all of the negativity? Did you pay attention to the acting?
I thought the lead actress, and I'm not familiar with her name.
Deborah Ayarinde.
I thought she was I thought she was really good. And I thought she was really I hate to say beautiful on camera because it makes it seem like it's just an aesthetic thing, but it's just that goes without saying, but she just had a very, very adult presence within the story. And so I found myself kind of watching her and, like, you know, tracking her and, you know, looking, trying to find the story kind of in her face and what she was feeling to see if it was something. I was waiting for the catch. I was waiting for for her to go out there and smack the shit out of somebody. I was waiting for something. So I was just trying to, but there was just a lot of things, and there's a lot of things in the story, little bitty things. When people write this is where I'm like, you guys are throwing in so much in all the wrong places and then putting a bunch in all the bad places. For instance, since when would this mama right here have to tell this little 6-year-old girl so many times, don't which it was in the first 1 or 2 episodes, and she was like, no, don't go over there. I told you don't go over there. Don't go over there. And the little girl went over there anyways. And it's just like, what do you do? What? Well, she didn't know. She don't know her mama. Like,
Right.
she had to tell you that many, like isn't that something we're like, man, we don't do that. Mama just, how many times does she have to tell you, little girl? And it's like, whose little girl are, like, that's when I'm like, whose story are we telling? Where's
right?
Whose story are we telling? You know what I mean?
It's
It's
like
just
time out. Yeah.
we don't time out. You know what I mean? Hey, it's just like when the kid, I hate you, mom, and we know what sitcoms those are in, and we know what sitcoms those aren't in. Why is she telling her so many times to stay away from the white lady and not to take toys from her or accept gifts from her? Like, she told you, and she goes over there and shakes her, and the girl, oh, I'm so sorry. What? Like, that's all you got? Like, it's just, it was uneven for me. The very few things that I did watch, on top of being tragic and trauma. And I think even for me, pointless. Like, what was the goal? It wasn't a history lesson. It wasn't to scare us. I don't understand what your goal was. A horror movie supposed to scare me. Someone jump out. Whew, God, that's scary.
Well, Lena Waithe said in her interview in Vogue, she said, like these surprise bubble moments, and God bless her, but I mean, these are moments where she's educating the white publications who Vogue just got interested in Black people during the pandemic. In all the years that I have been reading Vogue as a fashion enthusiast, I've seen more Black people in Vogue in the past 18 months since COVID and the death of George Floyd than I've ever seen, because people want to be exonerated from their crimes. They want you to say that they're not guilty. And she did an interview with them, and she said that, entertainment doesn't like Black people. We work with people all the time that don't look like us. Well, newsflash, like we know this. We know by the representation in front of the camera, behind the camera, in the writing room. So this isn't new news. And I kind of feel like we're in this moment where Hollywood is trying to revise its own history as it's writing it. And it starts with people that are writing it are like 25 or 27. So they don't know the history from before. And they don't even know the history as far as back as the Civil Rights Act. So they can't really create these lines of connection because it's like a complete historical erasure. It's like slavery, 1964, Barack Obama. It's like, that's history. And it's like, that's not all of history. Like, there's a little bit more you guys are missing.
Yeah, there's just those little nuggets in there. I'll tell you one scene that I did, again, connect with. When she was sitting at that table loading that gun up, I felt that was real. She was ready, like, we're going to handle this right now. Let them come on over across the street. We're ready to take care of this. I felt that was real to a certain extent, because that is a reaction. This mother is protecting her house, her husband, her children. They'll throw down on you for that. And she was not, to me, that was, again, it's almost like somebody was directing that scene. They had a connection, and then it went right to the next scene. Somebody else was directing it, and you lost the connection.
Maybe it's the writers, because, like when they're working on a script, there's multiple writers working on it, right? And so I'm wondering if that has to do with the kind of multiple POVs in the writing room. But to kind of circle back to what Lewis was saying, there's other things like this, the ghost lady, Miss, Minerva, what was she, the woman in the book?
Vera.
Miss Vera, yes.
Teacher, yeah.
I mean, what Black child sees a white woman coming in her room and doesn't go to her, doesn't sign on the side of the mother and say, Mom, I would never have to tell my child, don't do what she says. She's not real. Why would I have to tell my child that?
Yeah, where did that trust level come from?
Where?
Trust her.
Where? You know what? But this is something that we're seeing in all of these movies nowadays, and this is something that me and you talked about, Nicole, and it's very dangerous water to tread on. I watched American Skin. And I'm connect this point. I watched American Skin, and the young man was shot by the cops, right? And so during the scene, his father, while they're being accosted by the police, he says, "Put your phone up, put your phone up, put your phone up." But no, the son doesn't listen. The son keeps taping and everything. So it's very dangerous because, correct, the cops did what they did. There's no excuse. I'm not excusing that. But when the hell did this where happened in the relationship where this father had to say this to his son 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times and he didn't listen? My father tells me something one time at 14, 15-year-old. That was done. That was done. Put my phone up. Yes, sir. Man, whatever. Close my eyes. Yes, sir. Spin around in a circle on one leg. Yes, sir. That's going to be done. Put your phone up. Put your phone up. Put your phone up. No, Dad. No. 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 What are you, what are you talking about? Where is this story going? And so it's these little things in the fabrics of our stories that now, to someone who's older than 25, because you got to understand, if you're 25, your mother or father might be 39 possibly, you know what I mean? And that's no diss, but I'm just saying there is a lost sentiment to and sensibility to how we were raised and the things that we did. And so when you see that, to your point, Nicole, why it's not real? This story isn't real to me in the way you want it to be real, and it's fake to me in every other way that or it is too real. And what it's not, it's not sci-fi to me. It's this happened. I can't, I don't. And so and it's dramatized or whatever, to fantasize or romanticize or whatever into something as if it wasn't real. And then they add in the little sprinkles of things where I'm like, why? Why did she go to that white lady? She don't like her mama? She doesn't love her mama? What? Right. I would run away from a stranger in my room in the middle of the night, even now.
Well, I mean, we teach I don't know. I assume that many of us. What'd you say, Harvey?
I told Lewis, be careful.
Even now, I'm 37. If I wake up in my house by myself and someone is there in the shadows of my curtain, my first instinct is to get out, out, get to light.
Not to go have tea and cookies and tell me what you want me to do.
You beckoned? What is that? Come hither. What do you have for me? What?
And this is where the Wayans, we should give a shout out to the Wayans, of this was their brilliance early on of making the scary movie sequence and things like that to show the Black critique of these films. The sensibilities are definitely rooted in something that has nothing to do with the Black experience in America, because we are ready on the defensive, because we live with the expectation of violence in every aspect of our lives. So, my kid knows if you hear something, you go in the closet, you keep it quiet. I mean, we have a whole drill.
Am I mistaken, or when they're scene, and this is the classic no, this would net where she opened that dark basement door and walked down there.
all the way down the stairs.
Didn't look for light switch at first. Just went down into the basement.
Took your child in the basement and said, we're going to fix a broken window when Dad is not home. Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Yeah, in them. I don't know. I don't know who's stitching together these stories, but I don't know who's the overseers. I don't know the process of how you get a show and you say, we're going to put Black people at the base of this show, or maybe not. Maybe Black people wasn't at the base because there's white people in it. So I don't know how they want to classify it, but we can at least say it was centered on this Black family. And now we're going to have Black showrunners and we're going to have a black writers and all this. And somehow all of this stuff gets missed,
or consented to, right? So you're going to tell me, you go from hustling and writing in a Starbucks for 4 years to making 25 G's a week. I'm going to go with they'll get over it. I mean, that's kind of the rationale for people, okay, but I can do more. And I think we should, talk about that a little bit. I think people are exchanging opportunity for these stories that end up doing more damage work than we can ever reconcile. But at the end of the day, maybe they're looking at it, well, but I am, an executive producer, or I'm now a writer on a show. I'm now a director, and I can do more for my community in that position than I could before. So, I mean, I don't want to, my critique stands. I'm not going to take that away, but I do understand that people are negotiating their position vis-a-vis this content. And I think when they get in the room and producers are like, we want to just make this a little bit more, let's put the blackface guy in again. He was hilarious, and I'm like, no, he was horrifying. And he was created by you. We didn't create a man in blackface to terrorize. You created a image of us in blackface and terrorized us with it. So these are not our images. These are images that you created. I mean, we've occupied them as Black people. We've had to perform in blackface before, but that wasn't because that's what we wanted to do. And so why are we doing this kind of 21st century version of blackface? That's kind of what it feels like to me. It feels very damaging, and I don't know. I'm at a loss, really at a loss with that, and Underground coming on, and all these shows. They really, they're very traumatic.
I think there's the story, and then there's the product.
Sure. Sorry, Barry.
They're no way connected, really. No way connected.
Ask the question because I only saw the 4 or 5. There was the episode where the baby is being tossed around in the bag.
Oh.
And I think I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and then there's the funeral that they're burying the child. Did the father ever find out? What the hell? Was that ever explained?
As far as I remember, it was like a horrific, I think he comes home to find the child has died, because that happens to her alone. Like he's not there when that happens.
Right.
But again, this is what I mean about the ratings. You're under the guise of fiction. You're able to teach audiences about this violence and recover these lost ways of terrorizing Black people. I mean, so the idea of putting a Black child in a pillowcase, we understand that these type of atrocities happen to us over and over again. They drowned our children. They buried them alive. They did all types of horrible things. But why would you want to show that? Why would you want to show that in a climate where Black men and women and non-binary folk are being killed on the street by police on a daily basis and getting away free? I mean, where do we have time in a 21st century moment like this to watch Black people get killed in a multiple different ways as they're getting killed in real time?
Well,
like, how is that entertainment? How is that a funny horror story for us to consume? It's not for me, and I can't co-sign on it. Can't co-sign on it. I would never take the job. That would be my answer. You could tell me right now I have an opportunity to direct the episode with the baby in the bag or any of these episodes, and I'm a director who wants to work and likes to work. The answer is a hard no. Absolutely not. Not doing it. I'm not traumatizing myself or my community. And those are hard choices. I mean, everyone, obviously the director who takes it is more successful than I am. And that's a reality I have to deal with. But
Harvey, I remember when we first started talking about them, you said some of the white actors were saying some of those words a little too, they were relishing. They were relishing those words, boy.
Yeah, a little bit of typecasting, maybe.
Good on the list. It's weird. I've always wondered that. It's like, and granted, I don't know. There's just certain things that I wouldn't want to portray, and there's just certain things I wouldn't want to do on film, even for the sake of the story. So I just always find it interesting, the other side of the coin. Yeah, the Black actors, the Black directors who take this job, it's work, right? It's work. But I mean, I grew up selling drugs was work too. You know, I didn't opt for that. You know, I like there's, you know, and they say, well, that's an extreme example. You know, one's illegal, one's not, or whatever. I get it or whatever, but we're really dealing with morals, right? We're dealing with what our own personal values, regardless. You know, because I know a lot of people who did things that were, you know, illegal that wasn't, you know, convicted or conflicted by that. But that's beside the point. But the thing is the white people who sign up to this, like, man, have you know, like, Reverend, like you want to do this, like you want to say that, like you want to be Miss Minerva or Miss Vera or whatever, like you want to be that person, you want to throw the baby, like, and you say, man, you know, it was, I know actors speak, it was so hard, and I went to my trailer every day and was so I really had to dig deep, man. I did you? Because it was right there at the surface for us. And it's just like, man, you know, I don't know, I call bull on that. I bully. I don't believe you. Like, I don't know. It's just certain things, you know, there's just certain things I don't want to portray on film. You know what I mean? So certain things that I don't want to do, you know what I mean? And so it's just like I get it's work. I get it. You're an actor. This is what you do. But it's just like, ugh, like, I feel like if there was some type of unity to say, all right, I think we've had our feel for this story, then we could go another way. Like, you've got the money, you've got the actors, just go back and say, listen, do something else, try again. But
Amen.
that's not gonna happen.
Nicole, you're muted.
Sorry. See, these things happen. This is Zoom television, everybody. How can we think about what does that look like, though? Because this level of violence, if it were in a feature film, it would have a much harder difficulty getting a rating. The type of violence that's in this, I mean, this borders on R, NC-17. The one on Underground that's on primetime borders on NC-17. Like, extreme violence. I mean, violence, incomprehensible violence. We're letting this stuff go. We're not looking at trigger warnings, responsibility. And I mean, what can we do as artists to create awareness around this work? Because this is violent work, and we're not really categorizing it as violent. We're just putting it into this fantasy category, which is very dangerous. If you had an actor doing stunts, if you had an actor, you know, doing stuff on tightrope or whatever, you would call in, you know, body doubles, etc., and all this stuff. And I heard on Underground, the other new show on primetime that is, you know, if not more violent than this one, that they had a therapist on set. I think Monica and Dunu told me that they had a therapist on set to help reconcile the trauma. But I mean, how do we turn this down? How do we go to some of the, you know, SAG and AFTRA and say, this stuff should not be greenlit? Like, I don't think we should, but now we're getting people's money, right? I mean, we can't really do that.
Money and artistic freedom. They have the right to write this story. As a right, they have the right to write this story, to do this story. They have a right to do it. And if enough people believe in it, they have the right to make it. And that's why I become a little bit incredulous and cynical and saying it's always going to be there. They've tapped into a market of people who find this stuff valuable.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot like social media. It's a lot like Facebook, Twitter. It's people's right to expression. You can say something and it can be hateful, but as long as it's hateful in this lane, in this context of hateful, and not in this context of hateful, well, wait a minute. Hateful should be one context. And so to me, the film is a lot the same. And also, when you go to actors, how many actors get to see the completed script when they're offered a part? They're told, you're gonna play a character here, and they're doing this or that. Here's, you know, you want the job or not. They don't get to say, unless they're at a certain level, well, what's the end result here? What happens at the end? What does this character end up doing? You know, they don't have that pleasure. It's kind of like, here it is, you want it or not.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can ask your agent. I mean, I think this idea that actors, I mean, sure, when you're first starting out, you know, maybe you feel scared to ask a question of your agent or your manager about what's in the context. But that's like me, you know, booking an episode of This Is Us, and I book it on 3 pages of sides. And then when I get there, they're like, oh, they didn't tell you this is fully topless. And then you have a sex scene in the shower. Well, I didn't sign up for that. Oh, but you're here now. You got to do it. No, I don't
Yeah.
actually. I don't. I can, and I think this idea of agency that we're as Black actors or directors or writers are lucky to have these opportunities. Not really. I mean, many of us who are, selected for these opportunities are qualified, have been qualified for many years. We're not like just walking down the street and somebody says, "Hey, you want a series? Can I give you one?" I mean, people worked really hard to get these. So, I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that these shows are on. I agree with Lewis. They have the right to do this, and actors have a right to take these jobs. They're great for them. I'm going to go with Melonnie on. It's a hard pass for me. I don't believe, and this is a category that's not pornography, as Lewis said, that is some idea of selective pleasure. It is not fantasy, as Barron said. It is actually based on factual content. It's not horror, as Melonnie said, because, I mean, there's no release. Like, do we get away? Do we beat the white people across the street? There were 2 moments of catharsis when she got to smack the woman and he got to beat the guy up, shoot the guy or knock the guy out with the gun. I mean, we don't really have
Betty's fateful end was a little bit cathartic too.
Is Betty the white woman?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but we can go on about this. I just think, this is important for us. It's important for our viewers to keep revisiting and talking about this stuff, because we all are dedicated to making Black content that uplifts and then empowers and makes people, engage with our history. I just don't know if I agree with this particular approach, but to each his own. So final thoughts with everyone. You can go around. Well, this is our final episode, everyone. We'll come back in the late summer to start season 2. And we're so glad you stuck with us this whole time. We're gonna just roll call. Any final thoughts before we head out on them? Is it a must-see? Not so much?
Hated it.
Hated it, Lewis?
I'm over this fascination with Black suffering. I'm over it. Even though I am a hardcore horror fan. This is something in a totally different category, and I'm so over the fascination with Black suffering.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, it's morbid, but if you like to watch autopsies, or so to speak, you probably will watch something like this, because you're taking something different from it. You arm up with what's not right about it, and you got to know what's not right to know what's right. But I think the bottom line is taking a little piece of music industry. You got to own your masters. You got to own that content. Once you give that content to this studio, that studio, sign it away, your name may still be on it, but that end result may have nothing to do with what you intended. You got to own your master.
Great point. Baron?
No, I couldn't. I don't vote for it. I couldn't get into it. I watched 5 episodes and I sat, because I love you, and I.
Thank you.
And I sat there and I watched. That was it.
I'm sorry to have tortured you. I do want to give a shout out to the creative team on the aesthetic of the show. The art direction is quite beautiful, even in the ugliness of the trauma. It's beautifully designed. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully acted. And
they tried to even have Betty show her trauma, right? The incest with the father and all that sort of stuff. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Equal opportunity trauma share? No thanks. Yeah, no thanks.
No, but to me, that was a way of saying Betty's not so bad after all.
That's exactly.
See, I took it as saying this is why Betty is so messed up.
Right, which makes it why she's not that bad.
Yeah.
If you have this, if she has this horrible thing she's carrying, you know what I mean? We do that all day, every day. If somebody is a serial killer, but then you look inside their home and you realize that they've been abused and tortured and chained in the basement and fed dog food and sprayed with pepper spray every single day. Yeah, he still goes to jail, but you say, but hey, damn, I mean, look what he was doing. Look at poor Betty. They made sure they did that. They made sure they did it.
That's right.
And
God
then
damn
they
it.
killed her. Then they killed her. So
Well, I mean, something's got to give after a point in a show. So, well, I mean, but that is to say, look, we are who we are here on Black Performance Project. We're not going to spare any feelings. Again, shout outs to the production team, and for the actors who are employed on this show. We're happy you've got a gig. Beautiful work. I just I'm really sending good thoughts to you and hoping that you're mentally and emotionally okay after doing this work, because it's taxing. And I don't think that people care about actors and their emotional wellness. And I think it's something we've got to talk more. Hopefully in season 2, we'll segue into that. We're going to be branching. I would love for us to do a review, talk about Lupin, the show Wolf. It's a French show on Netflix with an all-Black cast. It's a really beautiful show. Just kind of expanding our reach, not only US Black shows, but looking at some of the Black shows in London, France. We want to be able to, show people that Blackness is performing all over the world, and Black actors all over. So I think this is going to be a wrap, everyone. This is the end.
I think Lewis would like to maybe spearhead something on musicals.
Oh, wow. Definitely. He said we. Everyone polish up on their French. Lupin had its first season on, I think, Netflix. It's quite a good show. And I hope it gets renewed for a second season. We're going to expand a little bit more. Theaters back, everybody. So we'll be back on Broadway, back in regional theaters. So we'll be bringing you more theater. And we've covered TV and streaming films so far. And then we'll have more theater when we come back. So thanks for being with us. And until season 2.